Jolling, the accidental author, and very excited to be here for another month for our obviously our monthly video cast. And as you know, if you're watching this and you watch regularly, the goal of each of these interviews that I have is to help you become more successful with your writing and getting published and making the difference in the world that you want to make in the lives of others and also in the lives of, well, your own life and that of your family. So I'm really excited to introduce this month's guest because, and I'll in a sec I'll tell you how we met. It's pretty random, but firstly I just want to introduce and welcome Alana Scott. Hey, Alana.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on your little video today. I'm really excited to talk to budding authors and sort of share some tips with you.
Well, it's wonderful having you, Alana. And so Alana is an author. She's an author of this wonderful book, The Gut Friendly Cookbook. And let me just tell you how we met. This is random. I was in New Zealand. Well, as you're watching this right now, it was a couple of weeks ago, and I was. It was one evening, and I was getting ready to get up the next day very early to fly back to Melbourne, and I was getting something to eat, and I was standing, going through one of the, there's lots of options at an airport for healthy food, but I sort of found a place, and I thought, here's some options, and there was Alana, this young girl that's going through the food and being quite as picky as I normally am, and we just started talking, and wow, often you meet people for a reason, and it's often it seems to be random, but I believe that there's no such random events. I really believe I was meant to meet Alana and she was meant to meet me, and I really believe there's going to be lots more things that we're going to do together. But we're starting with talking to her about her journey. She's written a book called The Gut Friendly Cookbook, and there's a reason for that. And I'm going to get her to introduce herself and tell her story. But wow, she's incredibly accomplished. She's doing amazing things. She's an incredibly inspiring lady. So you're going to love listening to Alana. So Alana, welcome again.
Thank you.
So it was pretty random, wasn't it, how we met?
So random, but I think we were meant to meet while choosing our, chicken salad at the salad bar in the airport and swapping a little bit of our story.
Yeah. So I want you to share your story because it's a pretty amazing story, and what you've done is you've actually turned a fair bit of adversity into something that's incredibly positive and powerful. So just, if you wouldn't mind just sharing a little bit of your story.
Absolutely. I'm just going to dive right in. So my story started back in 2014. I was a university student back then, and, I wasn't particularly well. It started with me going to university lectures and being like, man, I'm bloated, and trying to sneakily unzip my jeans in the lecture theatre to let my bloated belly escape, and progressed from me having, sneaky farts at networking events.
And walking away and blaming someone else, right?
Yeah, exactly. You're looking at the picture in the corner, trying to have that quiet fart, hoping no one will notice you. So it sort of started there, and then my health really took a turn for the worse. I ended up having symptoms that were so bad that I was kind of housebound. I was in a lot of pain. I was, glued to the loo because I had really bad gut issues, and I just felt awful. I was also losing a lot of weight. So eventually I plucked up the courage to go and talk to my doctor about it, got sent straight to the GI specialist, the gastroenterologist, and was diagnosed with celiac disease and then later irritable bowel syndrome as well, which meant I had to make a whole heap of radical life changes, which is quite daunting as a young person to be told, hey, look, not only do we need you to go strictly gluten-free to see if it helps your symptoms, but we also need you to look at this other medical diet called the low-FODMAP diet, which covered a whole lot of foods for me. So, onion and garlic, how many of you cook with those foods as a base to your meals every day, as along with stone fruits and apples and pears and mushrooms and sweet potato, and the list just goes on and on. All your legumes are suddenly gone. And so, being the teenager that I sort of was still at that stage, I decided to watch Netflix for a good week and wallow and have a good cry, and got the food blues because I didn't know what to eat. And it was at that point where I had to make a decision about how I was going to live my life for the rest of my life. Was I going to be the person who wallows, or was I going to be the person who uses their life journey and their life story to make a difference? And that's kind of what I chose to do. But it didn't start with a cookbook. So do you want to hear a bit more about that?
Yeah, look, absolutely. Because I think, your story is your story, but I mean, we all go through periods of adversity and challenges and obstacles, and often, it's very easy to spiral into self-pity, as you did for your week with Netflix, and I think we all do that. But when you go, okay, so why is this happening? What's the lesson? What's the meaning? What's the platform that I can launch from? What can I do to make a difference and help others? And I think that's really incredibly inspiring in what you've done from there. So please continue.
Absolutely. So the first thing for me was to start focusing on all the positives in my life. So no matter where you're at or what dark place you're in, there's something probably good happening around you, whether it's being an amazing friend or, a really comfy bed or the fact that you still have access to lots of fresh foods that you can play with. You have to find the positive. Yes. So I found the positive, and I found all the foods that I could still enjoy, all the herbs and spices, the fresh meats, the fresh veggies, all the good stuff. So I started focusing on those. And then I used my experience growing up in a restaurant in our deer and dairy farm in the middle of nowhere in Tirau, which is this tiny country town. And went back to my basic food philosophy that my mum taught me, which was that fresh food is good food and it doesn't have to be complicated. And I was like, right, well, if it doesn't have to be complicated, then let's make this simple and tasty. And so I started, plucking up the courage, getting into the kitchen, learning how to cook a bit more. And from there, I started telling my dietitian, who was sort of leading me through the medical side of things and the health side of things, what I was cooking. She's like, this is great. I really wish I had somewhere I could send my patients to get this information. And so I thought, well, why not? Surely I can be that human. So at that stage, I plucked up the courage and I launched my blog, which is called A Little Bit Yummy. If you want to look it up, please feel free. It's alittlebit.yummy.com. And I started writing about my journey, writing about tips for the kitchen, and of course, publishing recipes and teaching myself to photograph. I couldn't photograph food to save myself when it started. I've got some absolute doozies from back in the day of me trying to photograph a muffin. It was just a disaster. So I had to start building up my skills. How do you actually write? And looking back at my first writing pieces, they're definitely cringeworthy. So if you're an aspiring writer, one of my pro tips to you is just write. Some of it's going to be awful, and that's completely okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. You just have to get that practice in and to keep writing and keep pushing yourself. So I've been writing for 4 years now, everything from blog articles to recipes, and it got to a stage where my blog had grown so much that the media started to get involved and get interested in what I was up to. And so make sure you tell people what you're doing if you are writing a blog or up to an interesting project. The media actually love good news stories. So here in New Zealand, we have a news segment called Good Sorts, which is where they invite people and go and interview them who are doing something good with the community. So by now, my blog had grown. We had over 1 million people a year coming on to visit and get resources. And so they came and interviewed me and said, can we share your story? Can we talk about the resources you're developing and your personal journey and how it's led you to this point? And I was like, yeah, sure. And it's after that is that the idea of doing a cookbook sort of started to come to life.
Wow, what a story. I mean, there's so much to that. And I mean, clearly your courage and, what you've done to really, I mean, if we talk about well-being, I love the fact that what you said, your mum's message was just eat real food. I mean, I've been in health and well-being space for 30 years and, there's all these fancy ideas and diets and this and that. And the reality is just eat real food. And the fact that you've got celiac disease, which is not an uncommon thing these days, and irritable gut and all that sort of stuff is incredibly common. And we think, there's something wrong with us, but the reality is you're almost forced to eat the way we should be eating anyway.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a really powerful message right there. The second message, and I'm just drawing out things that you've already said because it's wonderful so far, that just right. And I love, the message I give to these guys all the time that are watching. If you'll know that I just say write every day. I give people permission to write badly. Just get into the habit of writing. And what you've done is you've used your writing every day to build a blog, to create media interest, and to lead on to your book. And so, wow, that's the power of daily action. So, well done. Now, tell us a bit about the book, because, people are sitting there going, okay, well, I want to get a book published. How do I do it? And what are the benefits? So tell us a bit about that process of getting your book published and how that's benefited you.
Yeah, so getting a book published in the traditional sense, because I'm not a self-publisher, so I thought I should make that distinction straight away. I've gone the traditional publishing route where I have worked with a publishing house to sort of create this project and then wrap it into the Gut Friendly Cookbook, which has turned into a gorgeous book. But it wasn't quite the smooth sailing that I thought it was going to be. So after the Good Sorts program aired nationwide in New Zealand, I had a boutique publishing house pop up into my Facebook inbox saying, hello, we love your story, let's work together. And so, being a very newbie author, I knew nothing about the industry. I was like, this sounds great, let's just do it. So I signed with them, I took the advance, and then I didn't hear from them. Like they're like, off you go write a book. And so I was like, okay, but like, how long is an introduction going to be? And are we having an info chapter at the beginning of the book? And how many recipes are we going to put in there? And what style do you need them to be? Or do I have free reign? And are we doing lunch and breakfast and dinner and sweet treats? Are you wanting feast or dessert? Like, there's a lot that goes to writing a cookbook. And so I didn't hear back from them. So I was like, okay, well, I know when my deadline is. I'm just going to keep writing. So I did, and I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I submitted my first draft of my manuscript. And it was at that point that they started coming back to me, and they're like, oh yeah, like, it's okay, but we're kind of expecting this and we're expecting that, and oh, we don't think any of this information section at the start of the book's important. And I'm sort of sitting there going, hang on, like I told you from the start, it's a niche cookbook. It's based on a medical diet. We're doing it to help people. Like, certain stuff is important to me. So I did something that no newbie author would normally dare to do in the traditional publishing world. And I decided to walk away from that publishing house. I repaid them back the advance because I decided that my style of working, which is very systematic, probably to the ear of perfectionist, which is a little bit annoying, I decided that fit with that publishing house was not the right fit for me. So I took a step back. I decided that I did still want to publish my cookbook because it was pretty much there at that point. I'd spent, hundreds of hours working on developing recipes, photographing recipes, getting it print ready. So I reached out to my network to see who was in my network, who was in the industry space, who might be able to tap another shoulder for me and do an introduction to another publishing house. So another tip to me, if you're a newbie author, would be start turning up to networking events where there's other authors, publishing houses, author representatives there who might be able to help you out in the future when you feel like you've got something authentic and genuine that you're ready to share with a publishing house. Is that something you recommend?
Yeah. Look, I think that's a great tip. I think it's a wonderful tip.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, so I reached out. I'm part of a global organisation called the Edmund Hillary Fellowship, which is a group of global change makers, because I'm trying to create global change with my work in the irritable bowel syndrome community and so the gut health area. And I said, you unpublished with any other publishers? And one of my colleagues came back and said, yeah, actually, I've just been working with Penguin Random House, which, of course, you all know is one of the biggest publishing houses in the world. And I was really cheeky at that stage. Just like, any chance you could put me in contact with your editor so we can have a chat? And they invited me up to do a pitch session. I'm not sure how common a full pitch session is. Andrew, do you know?
No, I don't think it's very common. So,
yeah.
So that's a good thing. Yeah.
So they invited me in. A different thing with fiction, it's a little bit different. With cookbooks, classed as non-fiction, and they don't take many new cookbook authors on because the market is just so saturated globally with cookbooks. So to get invited in is the first step, and then once you get into that meeting, you have to really sell them on the content and the story behind why you're doing what you're doing. So I went in and I basically explained to them what I just told you about my background. And I also printed up a whole lot of photos that I had already shot. And their first question to me was, who was your professional photographer? Would quite like to hire them for some other cookbooks. And I was like, well, that was me. I've done the work, and I'd already got professional photos of myself taken to go put through the cookbook. And I was able to go on and basically pitch them a complete package of what this cookbook could be and my vision for it. And the only thing there was really a disagreement about was the title of the cookbook, which they ended up choosing for me. I didn't have a say in it, but that was okay.
Well, they know, don't they? Publishers, you know, you got to give them some credit, don't you? Yeah.
So as an author, I'm going to tell you, don't get hung up on the title of your book. Have a discussion with the publishing team, the editorial team who's looking after you about, you know, why have you chosen that particular name? And if you are really unhappy, then say, hey, I like this part of the name. Can we combine it with that and see if there's some wriggle room? Because they're looking at it from a different perspective. I got very wrapped up emotionally in my book because it's like my baby. And so when someone comes back and is like, hey, I'm not sure about this, it's very, very easy to jump on the defensive. Yep. And so as an author, when you're working with an editorial team, it's really good to read the email and walk away for 2 hours and then have a breath and then come back with your non-emotional thinking cap.
Yeah. And I think what you've got to realise, that I had to realise as well, is that they've got a vested interest. They want the book to be successful, so they're not going to give you bad advice, and they know. And I got to a point where I said, right, mate, get over your ego and just be guided and be led by them because they know what they're doing. And when you can do that, I get excited about suggestions because it means I don't have to think. I can switch my brain off and give it to the publishers to do that sort of stuff. So, Alana, now tell us, how long's the book been out and what are some of the benefits and some of the cool things that have been happening since?
So the cookbook was published in March this year. We've already sold out our first publication run, so it's just gone to reprint a couple of weeks ago, which is quite exciting.
Very.
As a newbie author on the market, to know that your print run has gone already and that everyone is happy. I think one of the most rewarding things for me is having the hundreds of emails and Facebook messages and chat messages coming into me saying that my book has brought food love into all of these households and helped these people, you know, regain control over their symptoms or find their food freedom or just be able to share a meal with friends and family without anyone being disgruntled about what they're being fed. So that personally has brought me a lot of joy, but it's also opened a lot of doors for me as well. When I met you, Andrew, I'd just been down to speak at a big Celiac New Zealand conference. And so now I get a lot of inquiries, you know, can I go and speak about my journey? Am I interested in appearing on TV to come and cook a recipe? You know, can I mentor someone, or different opportunities or avenues that I can take my online website as well, whether it's affiliate marketing or partnerships with different companies or scope to collaborate on different projects. And a lot of that has just come from people understanding that I am serious about what I'm doing. I have gone through the pain and challenges of actually getting something published and stuck to it and made it a success. So
yeah, wonderful. So can I just stop there, because I want to just pull out some of those very, very key messages, because again, for people watching, I want them to learn the stuff that you're talking about, because it's absolutely amazing. And I think the first thing is, the fact that, I mean, you've got to be audacious and you've got to be a little bit bold, and you were. I think, if you don't ask the question, you'll never find out, and I think that's really important. I think the second thing is, again, the fact that you've built your blog and you've spent years building that social media platform, and, that's one of the reasons why Penguin Random House saw you as a great potential author, is because you already had this platform. And this is something I tell the guys I'm working with all the time, that publishers are more interested in you as a person and what you're doing and how you're going to create success with the book, as opposed to how good the book is. And obviously you need to write a good book, but I think that's really important. And then I think the second and the final thing is, wow, when you are published, don't things happen? You get invited to speak and you get more media attention, and then doors open, and it's absolutely wonderful. So there's some wonderful lessons there. Now, so Alana, just as we sort of get towards wrapping up, I just want to ask you, what would be your main message that you would share with everyone that's watching this, that in their vision to do what you've done, and to write a successful book, to get it published traditionally, and to use that to make a difference in the world? What would be the advice you would give them?
it's a really good question. I think a lot of my success has come down to sharing an authentic story, something that's really true and unique to me. And I think if I had just gone and pitched to them a generic, gluten-free cookbook that wasn't grounded in a story and wasn't, something that was heartfelt by me, and I wasn't 100% vested into, it would never have got off the ground. So as an author, I think one of the most important things is, find something that you're 100% passionate about. Find something that you can use your own personal story in, something you can ground your project in, and that's going to be one of the keys to success.
Brilliant. Wonderful. So now, I'm sure lots of people are going to want to get a hold of your book and find out more about you, and possibly, get you to come and speak or talk to you in some way. So how do people contact you if they would like to?
For sure. You can contact me through alittlebit.yummy.com. That's where you can find the cookbook, for one. I'm shipping it globally, so if you want a copy, please let me know. You can also email me at alana@alittlebit.yummy.com, or of course you can find me on Facebook through A Little Bit Yummy page as well. So those are the best ways to get hold of me.
Brilliant. Well, Alana, thank you so much for your time and what you've shared. It's been absolute gold, and I know everyone that's watching this has got something positive out of it, and I know you're going to continue to make a massive difference all around the world with the work you're doing. So congratulations, and we look forward to seeing many more amazing things from Alana Scott. So thanks very much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.